Forget about the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that was recently passed just last week, because now there is a new $1 trillion bill in town. Just days after passing the infrastructure bill, Joe Biden and his administration are now working on passing the social spending Build Back Better program. And this bill is valued at around $2 trillion. The bill is the largest expansion of social safety net programs in the United States in decades. And as of recording this video, it has officially been passed in the House of Representatives and is now on its way to the Senate. So it looks like the Fed better start up that money printer again. Today, I want to talk about what exactly is in this Build Back Better bill and what it means for you and the future of our economy in 2022. That means we're going to break down everything that is in this new $2 trillion bill and who exactly is going to pay for it. But before we break all of that down, my name is Nate from Minority Mindset News, and if you like this video, make sure to smash that thumbs up button below and hit that notification bell too. That way YouTube shows our videos to way more money minds around the world, and we can keep making videos just like this one. 2020 and 2021 has been the era of money printing, and recently, President Joe Biden has added to that in a series of multifaceted bills. I have talked a lot about money printing on this channel lately, but to give you a short recap, in 2020, the pandemic hit. No shocker there. Industries around the world began closing. That means millions of people were out of work, at least temporarily. And we also saw parts of the economy shut down in 2021. That means there was a lot less money circulating throughout our economy. And if there's no money circulating throughout our economy, that means no one is spending money. So not only is no one spending money, but companies and businesses are no longer making any money either. That means our economy is basically going to collapse. So the Federal Reserve and the federal government decided to step in and offer some assistance to average Americans and companies. We saw thousands of dollars in individual stimulus checks being given to Americans. We also saw companies benefit due to the Paycheck Protection Program. This meant that all companies needed to do was not fire people, and the federal government would supplement some of the profits they were supposed to be making. In addition, we had heightened unemployment assistance. So on top of people receiving unemployment assistance from their states, they would also be getting unemployment assistance from the federal government. And the Federal Reserve did not stop there. They ended up going into Wall Street and buying billions of dollars every single month in bonds and treasury notes. All of this equated to around $3 to $5 trillion that needed to be printed in order to fund all of this assistance. But in a nutshell, 25% of all of the US dollars that are currently in circulation were printed in 2020 and in 2021. And what seemed like free money to a lot of people is definitely not free. All of this is going to be paid for through inflation. Inflation happens when the money supply is increased. So if the United States government has to print more money, then you're going to see inflation. Typically though, inflation is only around 2 to 3%, but over the last 2 years, we have seen a record high inflation that coincides with record high money printing. What that ultimately means is the buying power of your money is going down because every dollar that is in circulation is becoming devalued. When the United States prints more money, that means more people have more access to dollars. And when people have more access to dollars, they go out and spend that money. If people are spending more, that means products and services around the world are going to have to increase because companies have to increase the amount that they produce. And none of that's free. So costs increase for companies, and in turn, they trickle that cost down to you. So it's the hidden tax on America, ultimately. By the end of 2021, a lot of people thought that most of this money printing was over with. The Federal Reserve was no longer printing stimulus checks, and we saw the Federal Reserve begin to taper its bond buying and treasury note purchasing. Tapering essentially means slowly cutting back. In addition, extra unemployment was ending, so it looked like the Federal Reserve was finally getting ready to end all of this money printing. But that's when Joe Biden and his administration began pushing this $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Now, I talked about this infrastructure bill in another video, and if you want to see the full breakdown on that and how it will affect our economy, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But the bottom line is, it passed, and now the US government has to find another $1.2 trillion. And we're now looking at a $2 trillion bill from Joe Biden and his administration, and it looks like it's starting to make its way through Congress. The infrastructure bill was created to help rebuild some of America's crumbling infrastructure, things like roads and bridges and even transportation. However, this social spending Build Back Better bill hopes to expand Medicare, education, and renewable energy in the United States. Right now, I want to go over some of the major things that are in the current version of this bill. The first up is universal preschool. This would be for all 3- and 4-year-olds in the United States. The goal here is to give them a lot of skills and knowledge, and not only that, but the routine before they hit elementary school. So it's not really clear at this point if this bill is actually going to cover new preschools being built, or if it's just going to give parents a credit that they can then use to put their child into preschool. It's also not really clear how parents are going to choose between preschool and preschool. In addition, universal preschool could mean that millions of parents could return to the workforce. Over the last year or two, a lot of parents have been working from home, and in addition, they've been watching their kids at home. Now, while this is free, that means millions of parents cannot go into the office. But if universal preschool was around, then they may be able to return to work in person. In addition to that, this bill proposes a child care cap of around 7% of a parent's income. This is all based on what the state median income is, and if you make over 250% more than the state's median income, well, then this cap does not apply to you. This could make childcare much more affordable for parents. Right now, in the state that we're based out of, Michigan, childcare can be between $600 and $1,000 a month on average. So having this cap means that childcare is much more accessible to some parents. And that could ultimately mean two things for parents. For one, they're saving a ton of money, and they're getting childcare. And for two, parents are able to return to the workforce a lot sooner. Which leads us to the next part of this Build Back Better bill. It proposes 4 weeks of federal paid parental, childcare, or sick leave. Average parental leave in the US is 12 weeks, but that is unpaid. The average in the US for paid parental leave is less than 9 weeks. So this bill would give you at minimum 4 weeks. It's unclear whether this is in addition to what businesses will offer, or if this must be taken first or after what businesses will offer. Because if your employer does happen to offer you 12 weeks of paid parental leave, well, can you also take an extended 4 weeks on top of that because of this new bill? Yeah, it's not really clear yet. But now we are getting into the parts of this bill that are directly going to need money. And what that means is money printing. $500 billion of this bill is going to be used to combat climate change. Most of this money will be spent on clean energy tax credits for the American people. People that have electric vehicles and use renewable energy in order to power their homes, like solar or wind energy, may get a tax credit from this bill. And if this bill is ultimately passed, that would be the federal government's largest investment into clean energy. The infrastructure bill and this new bill kind of work together in this aspect. The infrastructure bill hopes to create thousands of electric charging ports all throughout the nation. That way, as a lot of these automakers start to create electric vehicles, Americans will also have access to electric charging ports all throughout the country. In addition, this bill will extend, at least for 1 year, child tax credits for parents. If you have children, and depending on how many children you have, the federal government would essentially give you money back on your taxes. According to some statistics by CNBC, this has pulled over 3 million children out of poverty and has decreased child poverty in America by around 25%. And ultimately, that is a short-term fix for a long-term problem. Sure, you can give parents and families money today, but that doesn't mean that they're going to keep that money and have money for tomorrow. That is the whole goal behind this Build Back Better and social spending program. It hopes to create programs that can lift children out of poverty before they even get there. But just like the infrastructure program, none of these policies have been instituted yet, so we'll have to wait and see how they exactly play out. And that is all of the major components that are within this current bill. Now, here is who's going to pay for it. According to Joe Biden, this bill is easily going to be paid for by new IRS oversight in taxes. The IRS will now have a lot more oversight when collecting taxes. These provisions could help find people who are currently evading taxes and make them pay. Allegedly, that could bring in around $400 billion over the next 10 years. But it also looks like this bill is going to create a $367 billion budget deficit within the next decade. America's budget is pretty fragile. Every single year, Congress decides how much money it can spend. Every single year, though, this needs to be expanded so the US government can spend more. A lot of the times it's because of bills like this. And things are getting crazier by the year. In 2021, it looked like the United States was going to default on all of the debt that it had. As a lot of you know, the United States has a lot of debt, $29 trillion in debt to be exact. Every so often, Congress decides how much debt is too much debt. And then when they approach that debt limit or debt ceiling, they ultimately decide to just push it even further. So at the end of the day, this bill is most likely going to add to that. And it's not really clear how taxes are going to be affected by this bill yet. Congress hasn't said if they're going to raise taxes and how they would do that and where they would do that. Although it is possible that taxes as they stand could just be reallocated in order to fund this bill. But overall though, you are going to end up paying for this bill, even if taxes aren't raised, because of inflation. I already talked about this previously, but as the government prints more money, inflation is going to naturally rise. We have seen record high inflation, and if the United States government continues to print more money, record printing for that matter, then we're going to continue to see record high inflation. And it always looks like the United States is going to get a lot out of these bills, but our finances are really taking a hit because of it. And to be clear, this new Build Back Better social spending bill is still in the very early stages. It is in its first form that just passed through the House. There is likely going to be some major changes to it over the next few weeks, and that's if it even survives. But as this bill moves through Congress and changes, we will definitely keep an eye on it and update you when anything changes. But now I want to hear from you on this issue. What do you think about this new Build Back Better social spending program? Is it a great idea and does it have some great things in it? Or is this bill a disaster and should not be allowed to pass through Congress? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment below before you go. That is it for today's business and financial news breakdown. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button below. Keep hustling, money minds, and I'll see you all in the next one.